Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how much we love to really sink our teeth into these texts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And today we have a really, really interesting one, I think, um, called "Stranger for YouTube,"
Mm.
and it's a parable, and it explores faith, deception, and truth, and kind of like how we form our beliefs.
Well, and what's so interesting about this one is that it takes like kind of these themes that we see a lot,
Yeah.
like the return of Christ and the Antichrist and prophecy,
Right.
but it puts a spin on it and it makes you think about it in a new way.
Yeah, and it throws you right into the action.
Yeah.
It imagines a world where everyone believes they have found God's chosen leader, like a president
Right.
that was handpicked by divine power.
Yeah.
And they cling to every word of this supposed prophet. They're convinced that they're on the right side of like this epic battle between good and evil.
It's interesting, isn't it, how we have that desire, I think, in all of us to
Yeah.
be a part of something bigger than ourselves. Right. And to feel like we're on the right side.
And to have it all figured out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like have that certainty.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where this parable gets so interesting because it's really, I think, holding up a mirror
Oh, totally.
to that human tendency towards blind faith,
Mhm.
And I think it's asking us, what happens
Right.
when that desire that we have for certainty
Yeah.
outweighs our willingness to think critically about it.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's where this stranger comes in.
Right.
This mysterious figure.
Yeah.
And kind of throws a wrench in the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They're like, wait a second.
Yeah, like the stranger starts poking holes in this narrative,
Yeah.
like posing these questions. Like, if a prophecy hinges on people believing it,
Mm.
is it really a prophecy?
Hmm.
Does something coming true automatically make it divine?
Right. Because you could look at it like that in any situation, right?
Totally.
Like just because something happens doesn't mean that it
was meant to be,
Yeah.
or ordained, or whatever. It's
Right.
really making us think about,
Well, and it makes you think about like, okay, where's that line?
right?
Where's the line between what we want to be true and
Right.
what actually is true?
Totally. And are we just making ourselves believe something?
Right. Are we making ourselves believe it because we want it to be true?
Right.
So badly.
Exactly. And then it takes this even more interesting turn because the stranger, in trying to explain
Yeah.
different foundations for belief, turns to a herd of cows.
Okay, I love this part.
Right. Like
What's so good.
it's so good.
It's so perfect because you have this, kind of like we're talking about presidents and, this big power struggle.
Right, like good and evil.
Right, good and evil. Yeah, yeah. And then you have cows.
Cows.
Just
Right.
cows. And it's like, why?
Well, and it works because it's like they're so simple.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like they're just existing.
Right.
And it's like they get it. They just know.
They just know.
They're like, yeah, this is true because it is.
Yeah.
Or this is like they see the truth.
So the stranger's basically saying there's this foundation of truth
Right.
that just is.
Yes.
And then there's this other foundation that's
Yeah.
built by us.
That's right.
And it's like, are we building on sand?
It's like that parable,
Yes.
right? Of the house on the sand
Exactly.
versus the house on the rock.
Yes. And then, oh my gosh, and then a serpent appears.
Oh, boy.
Talk about loaded imagery.
Right. I mean,
Right.
right off the bat, you know where this is going.
You know it's going to be good.
Serpent bad.
Right.
But like, what does that mean here?
Yeah, what does that symbolize in this context?
Right.
I think here the serpent represents the people who benefit from keeping other people in the dark.
Oh, interesting.
Right.
Okay.
It's like they're threatened by the stranger's message.
Because if people start thinking for themselves,
Right.
then what
And
happens?
they lose their power.
Oh.
Right.
And the stranger uses this analogy of the tree of life
Okay.
and talks about how giving and taking are like forever linked.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
That like to have truth means that something has to be given.
Yeah.
It's not just this free thing
That's a good point.
that you get to just like,
Yeah, it's not just handed to you. You
Yeah.
have to work for it.
right. And it requires something of you.
Yeah, you have to be willing to sacrifice something.
Maybe.
Your comfort, your previously held beliefs.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's like those animals who are listening to the stranger talk about this,
Right.
they start to get it.
Yeah.
Like you can almost see the light bulbs going off.
It's like they've been lied to, And
Yeah.
you're like, wait a minute.
And they're like, wait a minute.
This doesn't make sense.
This whole time.
Yeah.
And the parable ends with this image of a closed book, which is so good.
What do you think that represents, that closed book?
I think it represents like true understanding.
Okay.
Like you can only open that book if you truly
Right.
get it.
You have to have the key.
Yeah, you have the key.
To open the lock.
And the key is truth,
Right.
like objective truth.
Wow.
This parable, it doesn't give us any easy answers, does it?
It really doesn't. But you know what? Maybe that's okay.
Right.
Maybe the point is to sit with these questions,
Definitely.
to keep searching.
Yeah, and to not be afraid to ask those tough questions.
Exactly.
Even if it makes us uncomfortable.
Yeah, because that discomfort,
Yeah.
that's where the growth is.
That's where the good stuff is.
with how we learn.
100%. So if we think about that ability to recognize truth being like a seed that's planted inside of us,
Okay.
what are we doing to like water that seed?
That's a great question.
Right. Like how are we nurturing that?
Yeah. Are we reading things that challenge our perspectives?
Yes.
Are we talking to people who have different viewpoints?
Yes. Are we being honest with ourselves about that?
Right.
Our own biases?
Yeah, all of those things.
Oh man, so much to think about.
So much.
Thank you everyone for joining us on this deep dive. This was Stranger for YouTube. Such a good one. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.